Well, good evening, Storm Nation. Welcome to the Wednesday, January 13th, 2021 video update. My name is Brad Bergstrom, and I'm lucky enough to be the superintendent here in Sauk Rapids Rice Public Schools. My topic tonight that I want to talk about is going to revolve just around one subject, and that is quarantining. And in my video from a couple of nights ago, I spent a little bit of time talking about that the quarantine guidelines that we had prior to going into distance learning are still in place, and I want to talk a little bit more detail about why that is. So at this point, we're going to continue to follow the Minnesota Department of Health decision tree when it comes to COVID and COVID-related absences, and the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health have both said that the best practice for quarantining is 14 days. However, back in early December, they laid out some additional guidelines where you could lessen the amount of quarantine. And what they said is that if you don't get tested and you've had no symptoms for 10 days, you could then, in theory, come out of quarantine. Or if you waited till days 3 to 5, went and got a test, and it had to be a PCR test, and it came back negative, and at day 7, you could come back, in theory, out of quarantine, which on its surface really sounds like it's a great piece of information. However, when you get into the fine print of what the document was saying, there's a couple of things that it kind of come out. And one is that even if you follow those less restrictive guidelines, which again, the best practice is the full 14 days, but if you do the 10 or the 7 day, you have to socially distance for at least 6 feet upon your return. And for us, especially as we're looking to move more students into an in-person model, starting at the elementary level on January 19th, starting at the secondary level full onslaught on February 2nd, 6th and 9th grade on February 1st, the ability for us to maintain a social distance of 6 feet is highly unlikely. And so because of that, the shorter quarantine time period will not work for us. In addition, it also says that if the positive case happened in a household, everybody in that household has to stay for 14 days. So with those two caveats that come to the 10 and the 7 days, it just will be very rare circumstances that we're going to be able to exercise the shorter quarantine time period, and that's why we're staying with the Department of Health guidelines of 14 days. In addition, we knew that if we started to do this would create a lot of confusion for families, because sometimes it's 7 days, sometimes it's 10 days, and why is my child being 7 days, or 14 days, another child is 10, and it's a logistical nightmare to keep track of on our part as well. So in those rare circumstances where it's applicable and we can maintain the 6 feet of social distancing, we certainly will allow the shorter time period. But in most cases for staff and students, it's just not going to be feasible to make that happen. And I just wanted everybody to understand the why, especially when it was so highly publicized back in December, that we could shorten the quarantine time period. With that, I think I've gotten through the parts of this topic that I want to talk about. I'll continue to share videos in the coming days. Got a few more topics that I want to make sure that we get out to people. In the meantime, have a great night and go Storm.